Well, welcome again to another session of transforming the teaching and learning environment. I'm Bob Hales. I'm your moderator who's also running out of gas. Thankfully, we're at the end of the day. So don't forget, tomorrow we got another Wall Street Journal session at noon Central. It's interesting. You should check it out if you haven't. Our session is, as you can see, student assistance for accessibility. We have with us Braden, is it Milam? Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, nice job.
And Tammy Powell from Kennesaw State. Where's Kennesaw State again?
Atlanta. It's just right outside Atlanta in Georgia.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So it's great to have you. And so tell us everything we need to know.
Well, thanks for having us. As you said, I'm Tamara Powell, and with Braden Milam with us, and we're from Kennesaw State University, and we're going to talk to you about student assistance for accessibility. We have fantastic student assistants who have helped us make sure all our courses are accessible.
So I think I'm kicking off. So as we said, Kennesaw State is a university. We're an R2 located in Metro Atlanta. We have the highest enrollment in Georgia, so we are the largest college. Within the university, we serve the Radau College of Humanities and Social Sciences. RCHSS hosts about 2/3 of all general education standards. So we serve almost every student that comes through our universities because of general education requirements. 60% of our online courses at KSU are also offered by us. So we have, a lot of faculty that teach a lot of students. More specifically, we have 450 faculty that are full-time and part-time. And I think that's what I was going to say for this slide.
Yeah, so we just wanted to show you, some pictures of the team we're talking about. I do want to mention that the Office of Digital Education is now closed. It is no more. So this is all in the past thing, but it was a really groovy thing. So it's the Radau College of Humanities and Social Sciences Office of Digital Education. You can see Braden there on the left with Sam Lee, one of our first student assistants for accessibility. Braden was our first. So Braden was our very first. She's now a staff member at KSU. And Stephen Bartlett is our associate director there. I was the director. And Kaylee Polk, another one of our student assistants that you'll hear a lot about, and Lauren Snyder, who was a student assistant. She was not there quite as long, so you won't hear as much about her, but all of our student assistants are really awesome. And we're glad that Braden's still with us. So I think we threw that slide in. I'll go ahead and do this one. As you know, we're just kind of assuming that you know a lot about, the accessibility is federal law, that because we're a public institution and we receive state funds, that all our digital course components have to be accessible. And that means that courses have to be accessible to students who use assistive technology, if they use screen readers, and they have to be accessible from the very first day of class. We can't say, oh, wait, you're using a screen reader? Give us a couple of weeks, we'll get it together, in the middle of class. And videos, of course, have to be captioned. So that's what we mean when we say accessibility. So Braden.
Yeah, so this was, I think, 2021. Our college was given, the university president, Kat Schwag, gave us all of the colleges at Kennesaw State a directive to make sure that all of our courses met certain quality standards. And one of those quality standards was accessibility. So our office in particular was kind of tasked with coming up with a policy to put all of our online and hybrid courses through this course review process. before this, we had been offering accessibility assistance to our faculty just on like an as-need basis. So if faculty had students who requested accommodations, they would work with the Student Disability Services Office, and then we would be there to kind of help make sure that they got everything done that they needed to get done in a timely manner. And if they were just interested in, keeping their courses accessible for grant purposes, because we do have quite a few courses that are grant funded. We were also there to help as well in that capacity. So Tiffany Tiarina was one of our instructional designers. For a long time, she was our only instructional designer in the college. And so she came up with the idea of hiring undergraduate students to help with digital accessibility, essentially. We had student assistants before, but it was mostly in kind of an instructional, kind of a technical communication sort of capacity. We would write tutorials and offer like assistance during training that was very kind of surface level. But Tiffany really took that kind of idea and that position and ran with it. I was one of the first students, I think, under her that really got to explore the potential of that position. So I started off with creating materials to help faculty and later staff and students in making accessible course materials.
Yeah, Tiffany, and that's why we have the pictures of her here. She's gone on. She's now working on her PhD at Texas Tech, and she actually teaches at KSU is in the instructional design capacity. But yeah, she came up with the idea that we don't have anybody to do this. Like at the time, KSU did not have, our accessibility office was only for face-to-face classes. We had no one to help us with the online accessibility. I'd been the director of ODE at that point for about 8 years. I mean, one person, 450 faculty, and however many courses, that's, I mean, do the math, man. I mean, I can't do that. So Tiffany came up with the idea, but hey, students, we can afford students and students can do it. And I mean, obviously, not every student can do it, but man, we have been blessed with some amazing students like Braden, who was able to take on these difficult tasks. So
I want to kind of add to that. It was especially difficult because none of our students really came from a like digital accessibility background. Whenever we first started like recruiting for accessibility assistants, we were looking mostly at students within our own college because, the idea was that our students and our faculty know best how to support classes that are humanities and social sciences focused. We had at the university level, the office, it was the university level component, or not component, but counterpart to our office, which was the digital learning innovations team. And they're wonderful in a lot of capacities, but they are generally more focused on how they can serve the university as a whole. And it was, it's kind of hard sometimes to advocate for the specifics of our college, even though we were the largest college. So like I was a history undergrad. Sam was an undergrad that did, he was like double majoring in 2 different foreign languages and then also had like 2 other foreign language minors. And so like I had some like digital training background, but not like in the same capacity as maybe some computer science students. So we ended up broadening our net a little bit. We ran into Tyler Tate by accident, and these are the students. I'm going to start talking about the students in the picture, which this picture was actually taken in Berlin, Germany. We were able to take them to a conference, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But we ran into Tyler Tate by accident, and he was a computer science major. And he actually was the only student that we had in this last kind of final push for digital accessibility that had teaching experience. He's a coding instructor on the weekends. We also had Kaylee Polk, who was absolutely wonderful. She is a psychology major with a political science minor. Ellie Sloman was English education, and so she really wanted to look at, best practices in education and how she could apply that moving forward in her professional career. And then Aiden Reichner was environmental science. And then we were just so lucky to have them. We didn't really have to push like the accessibility kind of cause to them for any capacity. They kind of came in and we were like, we're looking for students that are, can do this kind of work. And all of them were like, oh, this is so important to me for, X, Y, and Z reasons. So let's do it. Let's go for it.
Yeah. And Sam, back to Sam,
Mhm.
he spoke 2 languages, but he also could translate like 4. And
Mhm.
so he was doing all the closed captioning for the foreign languages. We had a period where we had no closed captioning for foreign languages. And so he was doing it all. Like any language, Sam could do it. And so I asked that his pay be bumped up to $11 an hour. And one of the people came back to me and said, well, why does he deserve $11 an hour? And I said, do you want to hire someone to do closed captioning in 4 languages, or would you like to pay Sam $11 an hour? And like, it was no more questions, $11 an hour. He was incredible. So yeah, there was no, we didn't have to talk them into anything. They were so awesome.
Can you go back to that last slide just for a second?
Yeah.
I kind of want to highlight that the student assistant positions, like Tammy said, were kind of limited. We could only pay them so much from like a policy standpoint, even though I think all of them probably deserved as much money in the world as they,
Yes.
wanted. But on top of that, we were limited from our perspective in requiring certain experience. So we couldn't, usually campus jobs just require that you are enrolled. You don't have to have any kind of prior experience. So we were limited in that capacity, and we could kind of screen for that in the interview process, but like we couldn't require anything on the application. We also could only have them work 20 hours per week during the semesters, and we had to allow them to prioritize their coursework. Which is not, honestly, it wasn't that much of a burden, I guess, to allow them to do that kind of stuff, because they were just such hard workers that it was like, you could turn around and something that might take one of us 30 minutes to do, they'd have it done in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Really good.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry to like derail.
Oh no, you didn't derail at all. I like to think that they got something out of this as well, besides, $10 to $11 an hour. We wanted to make sure they got as much as possible out of it, and they too had their own goals. Leadership, because they were leading faculty in faculty development workshops. They were, they would, at the beginning, we would just say, hey, can you take this 10-minute session and lead the faculty through it, trying to, help them, so that by, Kaylee, by the end of her being there, she came in as this quiet, shy person who by the end of it was leading whole workshops by herself. I think she gained leadership skills, diplomacy, because you got to have diplomacy if you're going to work with our faculty. I don't know, Braden, if you want to say any more to that.
I mean, yeah, whenever you have students who are, I think on the last slide it mentioned that we had like a freshman, 2 sophomores, and a junior. So when you have kids that are coming right out of high school, and I mean, I can attest to this too, because I was one of those kids, you have to grow a lot, from dealing with your peers and high school teachers to working in a one-on-one capacity, and kind of moving past that point of, I don't know if it's like just like respect and admiration, but there's like some kind of like twinge of like fear whenever you have to work one-on-one with a professor the first few times, especially whenever you're generally considered the expert in whatever you're talking to them about. So, and two, faculty tend to, or our faculty at least, tend to remember that they're usually the smartest people in the room about any given topic, or at least they'd like to think they are. And so whenever students come in, These established professors sometimes have a hard few minutes to kind of adjust to, actually, I need to listen to this 19-year-old kid that, knows a little bit more about me or knows a little bit more about technology than I do.
Yeah.
So,
but a lot of times I'd be at my desk, grading papers because there wasn't anything else going on at the moment. And a faculty member would come in, I'd be like, oh, good, I can stop grading. And they'd say, oh, no, I'd really rather talk to Sam. Thank you. I'd really rather is Braden here? I was like, back to grade, which is great. It's a proud moment, but they liked Sam and Braden much more than they liked talking to me. But they had great communication skills. I mean, we talked about communication. Sometimes we had to talk about communication with some of the students, not Braden and Sam, but it wasn't, we didn't have to talk to them more than once. Information organization, because they were creating tutorials. We would create just-in-time, we called them just-in-time tutorials, like, for faculty who wake up in the middle of the night and can't remember how to load their syllabus up to our learning management system. We had a tutorial you could just go get whenever it was on our website. So they would keep those updated because you know how the learning management system likes to change, and they would do usability tests on them. So they got a lot of technical writing skills out of it. Advocacy, both I think for the faculty, but also for the students, that they were able to tell us, look, we need this, or this isn't working, or I don't have this, or we have a faculty member who's doing this, and we would have to very gently go around behind. And I remember there was a guy who had a handwritten syllabus, and he was just copying it and uploading it into D2L, and we were like, there's no screen reader in the world is going to be able to tackle that, and so we had to bring him gently into the 21st century. Research, we helped the students with research, and worked with them on research projects, which we talk about in a minute. They did some conference presentations. Professionalism, which we may not have mastered that. I don't know. We had some experiences in Berlin when I was like, oh, we failed you. And then of course, technical literacy, which they came in with quite a bit and also learned more. So as you can see, it was more than the typical campus job by a long stretch. Yeah. Braden, you want to?
yeah, so
Specifically?
Yeah, so within the realm of this course review process that I mentioned earlier, we really had the students kind of dive in on the accessibility portion. We had, we had 3 faculty members in the office that were qualified to do the kind of quality matters-esque portion of the review. So content and engagement were really the forefront of the focus for Tammy and Stephen and Julie, who is our other faculty member. She was our hybrid specialist. So the students really kind of went in, and we would have them do a kind of a clinical review of the course. So they would perform preliminary reviews and then pass it off to the 3 faculty members. And so within this process, the instructor would, make sure, we would make sure that the instructor gave permission to us to have a student. Some of our faculty didn't really love the idea of having students in, but, I think most of them, we didn't never have any really hard cases. Most of them were, pretty easy to kind of convince and get, acclimated to. And so after they were added to the course, students would look at every aspect of it, all the text, all the images, the videos. Oh, I see a question in the chat. So generally we would kind of walk the or whenever we had, this is a whole back end process, but whenever the professors would submit their course for review, we would have a question on the submission form that asked what whether or not they would consent to having a student look at their course. We made sure that the students that were going to review the course were not involved in any way in that coursework. So if a student was Ellie, for example, was English education. So she reviewed primarily political science and psychology and those kind of courses that were outside of her major field. And so essentially the faculty members would just have to understand that our students, had received proper training on the professionalism kind of required to be involved in course reviews. The students were not going to take screenshots and share the answers to all of the questions to the quizzes that they had posted. And so like that kind of just became the conversation that we would have with each faculty member, either through written communication or in certain cases, one-on-one conversations as well. So after they were added though, they would look at all of the different course materials and they would create a report identifying everything that needed to be made accessible. And so Sam really went like absolutely above and beyond with this process because he created this kind of cheat sheet essentially that had professional, pleasant instructions on like what needed to be fixed and how to fix it. And I think one of the key components of that cheat sheet was that it included links to the tutorials so that faculty could just click on, you know, a link and say, okay, I have the process of like how to fix, you know, how to add headings to a Word document right here. And that, you know, according to this, it should only take me 10 minutes. So I think that helped kind of ease faculty through the course review process as well, because it was very stressful for a lot of faculty, us included. And so also in this report, they included their contact information so that they could provide additional like one-on-one support as problems arose. And then they would send the report to the faculty member through email. And so I hear my dog's barking, I'm sorry. So generally it just kind of became, it allowed our students to become engaged with faculty in a way that they necessarily, like they wouldn't have become engaged before. And so it allowed like the faculty to see, this is why we're doing course reviews, because these students, you know, are here, they're invested, they want to succeed and they want their classmates to succeed. And yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and they
I
want to
feel
help
like,
you. Yeah.
yeah, they want to help you. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as what permissions, somebody said what permissions, I can't, I'm sorry. If you missed the whole, I'm a Zoom idiot before, I can't find the chat again, but somebody said what permissions did we give the students, and they all had FERPA training.
Mhm.
So they were all aware of FERPA. And then we use D2L Brightspace, and for whatever reason in our Brightspace instance, if you don't have full instructor permission, you can't see a lot of stuff. So they did have full instructor permission, which sounds crazy, but that was that's what we had to do. And the faculty, I mean, we did have one faculty member who didn't like it. And so we had a button on the intake form that said, if you don't want a student in there, let us know. But in general, well, nobody else said it. Like Braden said, there was one instance, that was it. Let's see. I feel like, so that's what they did, and then how we trained them. Okay. So they performed preliminary reviews of the courses, and as Braden said, they created accessibility reports for the faculty, and then Stephen or Julie or I would perform the review of the rest of the class. So the students weren't reviewing like content or anything like that, or trying to evaluate content, because I think the faculty really would have been very unhappy with that. But they would work, the students would work with the faculty to bring the courses up to meet the accessibility standards. In addition to working on this huge course review effort, I think we reviewed, it was like 700 courses from January to May, I think.
950.
Oh, thank you, Braden.
Yeah.
950.
I was just working on an article about it this morning, so
Yeah.
that number is present in my mind.
950. Yeah. They would work with faculty to help bring the courses up to meet the standards. They also would support special projects, and a good example is grants as accessibility experts. So they would be written into grants. They worked on 2 OER grant projects and got a little stipend for that, got a little experience and travel money. They supported research efforts, not only the research efforts that they participated in, but also there was a research effort that I worked with in our college, along with our College of Business, and they did some work on that. I mean, they were able to do all kinds of other stuff. They created some interactive tutorials for helping faculty make their Word documents accessible, which is super easy, but some faculty would get a little hung up in that. They created other tutorials like the just-in-time ones, but Tyler, because he had the computer science experience, actually had this interactive thing he created. They led training sessions on accessibility and tech literacy. And because of them and how great they were doing, and I hate to say cost effective, but they were cost effective. It helped develop and inspire similar student positions in departments. I know English is still, our Department of English still has accessibility assistants, and Aiden Reichner is now working in the English department as an accessibility assistant, which is good because I'm an English professor and I am glad he is there. I think a couple other departments tried to do that, but it just didn't stick. So some other departments were not quite so successful with the accessibility. Do you want to talk about how they were trained, since you were a big part of that?
Yeah. So because I was the first student assistant that kind of jumped in on this accessibility initiative, I ended up actually training all of the other students. First, like while I was an undergraduate student assistant, and then after I graduated, I was hired on as staff back in August of 2021. There was a brief stint as a graduate research assistant too, where I was kind of helping with that training effort.
We weren't going to let her go.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to leave.
We didn't want her to go.
So whenever I was an undergrad, I developed the asynchronous training called Creating Accessible Resources. I think this is still live on our website. I'm not 100% sure. If you're interested, let me know and I will drop you the SoftChalk link. But this was originally intended to be a training for faculty. Just an asynchronous, like 2-hour training where they could go through, and it essentially just explained why accessibility was necessary for our university and our college, what it meant in the grand scheme of things, and what some best practices were. And then we had like a page of comprehensive resources that had all to do with accessibility for the products that Kennesaw State supports. So I developed this. Sam created the standardized feedback sheet, the accessibility report cheat sheet that I mentioned earlier. And then the process that we kind of developed between Sam and I, because he was a huge help in training the other students as well. We would have the students complete the Creating Accessible Resources training, and then we'd walk them through kind of a more individualized process. Yeah, I think I can, I'll look at that whenever Tammy starts talking next. I'll try to share that cheat sheet. So for the individualized process, we would have a student complete an initial course review on like a practice course. Usually that course belonged to Tammy, Stephen, or Julie. And then either myself or Sam or Stephen or Julie or Tammy would sit down with the student and would kind of walk through. They would evaluate the initial course review that they did, and then they would walk through with the student, like, why did you make this decision here? Did you notice this? Did you, see this? And they would have we would have that kind of one-on-one meeting. And then we would all go through and like kind of review a module together. And a module is like a week essentially in the structure that we promote. And then the student would reevaluate the same course, and we would kind of begin that process over again. And usually it only took, 1 or 2 times through. We would, obviously work with them and provide additional support as they began these course reviews. And it did take a couple of them, a month or so to kind of get in the hang of it, because this was, a difficult ask, a big ask. But by the end of it, they were all pros. And I can't, rant and rave about them enough. They were just wonderful.
Yeah, they were. Oh my gosh. So I want to talk about the research opportunities because again, I think Braden and I are both, I'm so proud of Braden. And I think Braden and I are both very proud of our current group of students. And so our office, the Office of Digital Ed, was started in 2009. And originally back then it was just me, and my job was to grow online offerings. And so of course, by 2020 that we had a lot of online, like it wasn't they were growing themselves. I mean, faculty still needed support, but the original mission of the office had kind of been accomplished. And there was a sort of, well, do we really need this office? Can't everybody just really teach online now? I mean, doesn't everybody know how? And so one of the things that, this was pre-COVID, one of the things that one of our associate deans want to do, because a lot of the people in the dean suite really believed in the office and really, by that point we had Stephen, we had Julie, we didn't have Julie by then, but we had, a team. There was like 10 people at one point in the office supporting the faculty, creating these online programs and stuff. And so the associate deans really believed in the mission of the office. And so they created this student success initiative for us to work on, to sort of give us, because a lot of the tasks that we do, I mean, you don't see these students doing these accessibility reports. You don't see us going from office to office, making sure faculty have what they need to teach online or whatever. And so this would be something people would see that we did. It was sort of a kind of publicity, but also, a solid mission that people would appreciate. And so we were tasked with creating student success pieces and student success trainings. And so we worked with the students because, who would better know what they need than the students. And we created some student success minutes to help faculty really quickly, get some just bite-sized pieces of the latest research in student success. And so through that, the students put together a conference presentation for ELML 2021 and 22 as well, which also got them a publication. So they learned about research and they learned about putting things together and they learned about writing up the things that you do. And then they learned about changing your, giving the presentation, which was cool. Those were virtual because by 2020, of course, everything was online. And then they learned about writing it up for research. So they got a little publication out of it. So that was cool as well. And Online Learning Consortium, which many of you probably heard of, they presented there as well. Because when I first started doing faculty training, it was very clear that, especially for older faculty, you can't have the training last more than 2 hours, which as I'm getting older, I am actually like, yeah, I totally get that now. So I had always said, the research says we can't have trainings for more than 2 hours, face-to-face at a time. And I think really in my mind by that point, I thought that faculty would absolutely explode. Like I was just like believing it wholeheartedly. And Stephen, our associate director, came to me and he's like, Tammy, we need to have an all-day boot camp. And I said, you can't do that. You just can't. You'll kill them. No. He's like adamant, we're going to do this. And this is when COVID hits and we're really having to train a lot of faculty to teach online. And so we developed this virtual boot camp where they actually do sit through an 8-hour training. And we found that it really jump-started their learning. Like instead of having it dribbled out in 2-hour increments, I think partially because they were at home, they could get up and move around. They had their snacks and stuff right there, that the faculty really got a lot more out of it. And we had a higher number of completers. So we did this whole presentation on the research was wrong. And the students were a huge hit at OLC because everybody wanted to talk to our students. And Braden was one of our students at the time. So I think they really liked that because they were pretty much the stars. Everybody's like, no, we want to talk to the students some more, which was cool. And then once COVID kind of subsided, Stephen and I decided we wanted to take the students to Online Educate Berlin and physically. And so this past November, we did this whole, because I don't know if you're familiar with Online Educate Berlin, but they don't just want a presentation, like they want a show. And so we had this whole thing where we all played D&D except for Stephen. So all of us played D&D. And so we had role-playing games and we had escape rooms, and the students had created the escape room. And then Julie, our hybrid specialist, had created the role-playing game, and it was all based in online open educational resources. It was all based on open educational resources, and the students led the role-playing game. This was all during our conference presentation. The students led the role-playing game. 2 other students led the escape room. The attendees loved it. The students looked like they were having a blast. They did a marvelous job. And so not only did they get to do an international presentation and do a fantastic job of it, but they also, we took them to Neuschwanstein and tried to give them as much of an international experience as we could. So we were happy that we went out on a bang, at least, because at that point, we all knew the office was closing. So we had bang.
It was a big bang too.
It was a big bang.
These are our students at OEB. And like Tammy said, it, really kind of, I think it made a lot of them and me as well kind of reconsider like how conferences work. Because I was very involved in undergraduate, as an undergraduate researcher, even outside of the ODE, while I was completing my coursework. And like coming from a history background, I also did a lot of research with the Gender and Women's Studies program at Kennesaw. And we would go to conferences and we would like have our little paper and we would stand at the front of the room and we would read it, and that would be like the presentation we would sit through. And this conference was just absolutely, it blew me away, especially with how well our students did, because it just kind of, we created this kind of little community for, an hour and 15 minutes, and we got to play games and have fun. And it's an experience that all of us are going to remember, So yeah, if you're considering doing something with your students like this, I would highly suggest it.
This conference is like a 3-ring circus, so it was really great.
It was so much fun. Yeah.
So like I said, the office is closed, and Kaylee is now a teaching assistant in psychology in the psychology department, which is her major. Tyler is now a lifeguard / coding instructor at Code Ninja. And then Aiden is one of our English accessibility assistants, and Ellie is working in the library. So they've gone on to bigger and better things, and we're very proud of them. I just want to like Tyler in his hoodie, like that kid tripped me out hard.
The craziest thing is that we told them, we were like, we're going to go to Germany and it's going to be the week of Thanksgiving. So you've got to pack warm because like we're going to Europe. Y'all haven't, traveled outside of the continental US before. It's going to be cold. Make sure you invest in good jacket. And this kid shows up and he's wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt. And we get, we're like bundled up to go to Neuschwanstein, and he's like, yeah, I'm wearing 2 pairs of sweatpants today because you said it was going to be cold. God bless him. He just cracks me up. Anyway, so yeah, we have wonderful students, and this kind of process of creating students for accessibility initiatives was absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So I don't know, is there anything else you want to add, Braden? Because
I don't know.
I don't know if we've left out anything.
Yeah, do you guys have questions for us?
Yeah, it was
I'm
definitely
working-
valuable to our institution, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And our faculty.
I am about to embark on an accessibility initiative at our institution, and this has been really helpful. So thank you. And I would love to see your cheat sheet so I can share it with our online instruction committee. And I think it would be, really valuable to go through that cheat sheet with the students, several times probably to train them up. I do anticipate that there will be pushback with the permissions. We work in Canvas, and I think that we would be in the same boat where, in order to do a good job, we would have to give them teacher access. But I appreciate this, so thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Glad it was helpful, and I know we can share. Hopefully you have our emails right there, so you can email us if you want that car training that Braden developed. I mean, it is D2L specific, I think, a lot of it, but you could always use it to organize your own. I like having a template myself, so if you wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
Canvas has a lot of cool things. Maybe it's easier for you guys. We use Ally as well. I don't know if you guys use Ally, which I can't say. I wouldn't recommend it really, but if you do use it, I don't know. It's like hit or miss.
Yeah, I think it gave faculty a good jumping off point as a tool. And I think since you were talking about how like you're a little worried about pushback and stuff, we had I think we ended up going to, we have the Digital Education Council, which had a representative from each department we would meet with monthly. And so we kind of made the role of our student assistants very clear. And we gave them, we told them, we were like, we're going to put them through FERPA training. Like they've gotten the Buckley form signed. They've, met all of the requirements that regular faculty have to meet to have access to this information. So even though they're being paid, $10 an hour, like they've received the same training. They're liable just like faculty are if they breach that kind of that trust. So I think that went a long way in convincing our faculty.
And we had a review, like a Google form that they filled out to get a review. The faculty would fill out to get a review, and it had a button on it that said, if I don't want students in my class, so they could opt out right there. But also we had a chart of students and what their majors were and what classes that they were going to take or had taken or whatever. And we would never put them in a class that they hadn't yet taken or might potentially take or was in their major. So we were glad we had 4 student assistants, but there were times when it was like no student can do this class. So, and I would have to do it, or Stephen would have to do it, or Julie or whatever, which is fine. But, so you do, yeah, you're right. You're going to have different, you have to be aware. I mean, you can't just throw them in, which you wouldn't do.
Yeah.
So,
Linda, I see your comment in the chat about live classes. We
Mhm.
had them copy their courses into like dummy shells, essentially, sandboxes. So our students weren't reviewing live courses, but they did offer assistance, like temporary assistance. They would be added temporarily to courses that were live to help
yeah.
fix like big issues. We had a lot of faculty that struggle with the D2L gradebook. So that was one example. I can't tell you how many hours I spent on D2L gradebook for some of our faculty.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I had them in my live classes helping me with stuff. So I just don't think it would ever cross their mind to get in there and do anything.
No,
Just
and
knowing our students. I wouldn't say that about every person on earth,
oh,
but knowing our students. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think at that point too, it kind of helped to liken them to a TA, because TAs had all that same access. They just didn't have access to like edit the material. So that was another way we kind of explained it to faculty.
Which again, it's just our D2L instance wouldn't let you have non-edit privileges and still be able to see stuff. It was
Right.
it was a flaw in our system that fortunately our faculty tolerated. We have Equidocs, just trying to think of things. If you're running a faculty review system, or a course review system, faculty review, sorry. We just got Equidocs as we were closing down the office, and it has been fantastic for PDFs, and the students could run the trainings, could help the faculty with it. Because Aiden is going to help me. I still can't run that thing. I'm getting older and things are not as easy as they used to be. So these young people have to help me. I used to be really good. Like I would sit down, oh, I got it. Now I'm like, what is this? So he's going to help me with that.
Yeah, tell me about it. You got nothing to complain about. I'm a lot older than you.
I don't know about that. I don't think anybody's older than me anymore, but yeah, wow. It's just, what is up with this? Everything's so hard, but yeah. So we're using Equidocs. PowerPoints, I still can't. I wish there were some easy fix for those things. Kaylee helps me with those.
Microsoft has come a long way though.
Yeah.
I know at one point during the pandemic, we were swapping tutorials. We were updating tutorials like every 10 minutes because Microsoft was implementing so many changes. So, thankfully, I think technology corporations are kind of jumping on this accessibility train. So it's getting a little bit easier. Adobe PDF is just still a nightmare, which is why we ended up working with Equidocs on a university level license. And I would highly recommend that because PDFs are tough to crack.
Y'all, are there any more questions? I've enjoyed sharing this with you guys and with Braden, being here with Braden. Well, thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.